Oh, Blair, I'm so excited for this. Just for reference, everyone, Blair and I met through this group called our like Kangen water group. If you don't know what Kangen water is, I'm not about to explain that to you, but get on our level with water is life because we need that filtered water, baby. But I'm so excited to have Blair here today because I've always felt a divine connection between us. We've been in the same path and realm of the universal laws and trying to bring out this esoteric wisdom for everyone to live a life that is, intentional for their own purpose, for their own betterment, because we all have this ah, like we don't need to be deprived of what we want. We have to learn these things, and that's where I really feel our connection of teaching, of being teachers of these wisdoms that are just kind of a little nitty gritty, can be a little fishy feeling if it's not portrayed well or from a wholesome heart. And so that is really why and what we're going to be diving into today. And I'm just going to give Blair the mic, let her introduce herself, give you the down low on what we're about to dive into. And I'm just so honored to be in your presence. So thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you as well. That was such a sweet introduction. And I feel the same way. Like I've vibed with you since we first met. So it's crazy to think it's kind of like been that long already, but it's wonderful to be here with you and to like honor your wisdom as a teacher also. So thanks for having me. So yeah, my name is Blair. I am a teacher of the Law of Assumption. It's a school of thought regarding conscious manifestations, similar to the Law of Attraction, but kind of, I guess, a little more underground. Like I didn't learn about it until several years after I had heard about manifesting and stuff like that. My background is that I am an independent filmmaker. For the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years, I've been running my own business, specializing in producing these kind of like documentary style short films that like communicate the essence and mission of different brands. And I love, just telling the stories of real people who are following their dreams essentially and making an impact on the world. And the reason I was always really interested in film growing up, and I've always loved like stories of all kinds, books, shows, music. I just love art and the stories that it tells and the way those stories transform us and like invite us to evolve. But for film in particular, I was really struck by the power of going into a movie theater, kind of like letting your life like drift away so that you can live vicariously through this visual and audio experience. And then you come out the other side with a very tangible impact having been made on you, specifically related to empathy and being able to see the world through someone else's eyes, or like live in their shoes, walk in their shoes, I guess. So that's why I was inspired to get into film, was because, I thought, wow, like there's such potential here for connection and education and just people coming together and like making the world a better place. And I always was really interested in talking about kind of not taboo subjects, but like, areas where there's honest conversations need to be had, I guess. Areas of opportunity and challenge. So all the while I was learning about film and like pursuing this passion, truly in my heart, I think my real passion was metaphysics and the mystery of life and like why we're all here. And that being, that every story is kind of like a reflection of the larger story of who are we, what is this, what are we supposed to do, what can we do, all that sort of stuff. So that has brought me to where I am today, and I've had quite some interesting experiences with I guess I would call it realizing that you're not just a character in a story, but you are the creator of the story, and the pen is still in your hand, and you can affect your own story, you can affect other stories, you can affect the story of the world and take us off in new directions. So that's what I'm about.
Oh my God, my heart. Oh my God. So everyone, I don't even know if I express this enough, but the metaphysical world is my obsession. I can't get enough of it. At night, I lay awake and all of the visions of the ethers come into my body and just like orgasmically take me off into space, into like this mind. I don't even know where it comes from, but that's my like my secret side of myself that is so deep and contemplative of this world, and I love this. So I, first of all, I'm gonna be so transparent, I didn't know that you were into film, and that is fucking awesome.
Thank you. I'm glad that there's like some fun surprises like included in this discourse. Yeah.
I feel
Yeah, no.
I probably knew that some other time, but I like it's gone over my head probably just because of like the tunnel vision of like, oh yeah, we're in this group about this. And so those things. But like to not see the bigger picture, oh my gosh, I love it. I'm currently very obsessed with that. And I resonate deeply with the how you're saying like you walk into the movie theater, you sit down and you let go of your reality and you begin to, in the great name of Pisces season, such a great conversation for this, you go into this journey of of like the subatomic particles coming together and forming this show and these visualizations and lights and actions and sounds, and it's completely outside of you, but it feels like you are there and it is you. And that is something I've always felt deeply, and that's why I can't watch scary movies. Like I
Oh, same.
too into it.
Same, dude. Absolutely the same. And it's so cool that you say that because it's all so Pisces, as you said. And the process itself is an illusion. Like the movie is a bunch of still images moving really fast, you know? So it's like, yes, you're like moving into this very like Piscean imagination world, you know, where you're disembodied and like in something else, something different, but like even that is the experience itself is an illusion. So it's very meta.
Yes. Oh, I love it. And to play off of the imagination bit, what, like this question comes to me, where do you think that imagination, playing with that, has allowed you to evolve as a human? Like not letting go of that as an adult. How do you feel like that's impacted you?
Mm. Well, I think that is definitely a really important part of my story and my journey is kind of like uh the power of imagination. And of course, as you know, like opposite of Pisces is Virgo, which is like disciplined focus and like awareness of the details and being discerning. And like they're on the same axis for a reason. And essentially, like I came through a period in my life where I was letting my imagination run wild in, and you know, I was like pairing it with like some Virgo analysis, you know, and like a lot of like truth seeking and just, you know, like navigating the world that way. But I guess for the same reason why I like don't watch horror movies, I became very captivated with the world of conspiracy theories, which I would say is like a natural expansion of being a truth seeker and,
Mhm.
you know, like wanting to know about like how the world works and like what's going on and like, you know, who makes things happen and why things happen and stuff like that. But it, you know, it led me to a place where ultimately I was just like you're saying at night, you know, like all these like images of the subconscious like come to you. For me, it was like I could see like all of these pieces in the external world like playing together in this giant scheme, and I was like this tiny little human, like along for the ride. And I just came, I guess to sum it up, I was using my imagination and my powers of focus to dig into the truth, and to like alert people about corruption and like really scary stuff and stuff that like was, very important to me in terms of my values. But I was really just kind of alarming people and like alarming myself, like literally sounding the alarm, like, oh my gosh, this stuff is happening, we need to know about it, we need to work together, because of course in my mind I'm like, oh, like change can only happen through organized human awareness and effort, right? So back to your question, I I came to the point where I think I realized that I had kind of created like a cage for myself,
Mhm.
where I was so focused on this like grand story of corruption and lies and deception that I saw in the world. And I realized that I wasn't really embodying the answer to that, which is individual empowerment and creativity, and um, basically living the life that you would want to live other than that, in this like world of like control or like whatever I was seeing, right? Which was really just like a projection of my own consciousness at the time. um and it led me here, right? And so basically I went from seeing that the the facts of the world and like our imagination that we have, like it's not just there for us to observe reality and react to it. It's there for us to basically put in our 2 cents and not just react, but like create and transform what we're seeing, and like not necessarily through the standard, oh, if you want something to happen, you need to, make a big movement and like organize people. Because I had like a very kind of like activist past, like before I got into the metaphysics world and all that. It was always about like human rights and environmental preservation and like, just preserving goodness essentially, and like saving the world, which is like what all the stories are about, is about like a hero trying to like save their world. So anyway, I was a little rambly, but does that answer your question kind of?
Absolutely beautiful. Holy smokers. I am blown away. And it's what comes to my mind is when you say truth seekers and these people who like I will say it here and now that conspiracy theorists quotations around this. Um like why the bad rap? Come on. Are you really gonna say that someone who wants to see both sides and equally contemplate them, equally put them through the ringer and say, oh, well, let's check out the paradigm or the narrative that most people are looking at, but let's go over there, the one that they're like, yeah, getting all nitty gritty about and like pissed about. Like, why? What can make someone feel so much emotion when like someone has a differing opinion? And I think that like just to say it flat out, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, dude, if you have to be reactive over someone else's opinion or belief about something, what is it saying about you? And that's where my brain goes whenever that comes up to mind. But the fact that we have
Yeah.
power of our imagination and that we do get to like pick up that pen. We don't just pick it up when we're born and set it down like it's just sitting there. No, we can forget about that because of the conditioning of the people that take care of us, the school teacher, the kiddos around us, what they're saying. And because we're only human and rightfully so, get emotionally butthurt, it is time to like get back as an adult and put yourself through the initiation that most of us don't have. Like when you think of someone who has a bar mitzvah, like that is a turning point in their life of you were a child and now this next moment you are an adult. And that's supposed to be this huge impact on our psyche to go, hey, time to ball up, buttercup, and get going on dreams. Like, let's rally up and make a change, not just for yourself, but for the betterment of the world, like you're saying. Because typically, when we're serving from our hearts, our sole purpose, we are acting out of a need of God, universe, however, whoever you want to say. But it's not just for you. You're just the energy sac putting that action into the works. If that's heartless, I really apologize. But that's how I'm feeling these days.
Yeah, no, not it. I totally agree. And honestly, like when you were, acknowledging that, that's like totally valid to be a truth seeker and like go into these realms. Like I remember seeing a post one time and it says like, why do they use the word conspiracy theorist? I prefer reality noticer. And I vibed with that like so hard. I was like, yeah, like I'm not and I very strongly, believed like, well, there should be a conversation. Like, why do people assume that, so-called conspiracy theorists, like, well, if what they're talking about is so crazy, then like why are they willing to invite that like criticism, and like kind of the crazy judgment like from other people. So it's a really interesting, just like you said, it's an initiation. It's like you're being brought through kind of like this very customized experience that like grows your awareness in a very different way, and you're kind of like on your own. Like you can like talk to other people, but it's a very like personal reckoning. And what I kind of noticed that made me realize that there had to be something like more than just that there had to be, I guess, like um something productive that would like come out of this. Like I noticed that I was like very much in victim mode, and I was like placing a lot of blame externally on these like, bigger actors or people behind the curtain and all this stuff. And I remember noticing that I was using the phrase powerful people a lot, like powerful people are doing this and like power. And I was like, wait, if that's how I'm seeing like powerful people, and if that's like what I'm choosing to use the label powerful people for, like, what does that make me? And how can I switch this around so that I'm taking radical responsibility for what I'm seeing and not just pointing the finger and like crying wolf,
Yeah. Oh, the label. Yes, that was a huge bit. It's what if we drop the label? What if we drop these assumptions that to be a said thing, conspiracy theorist, you have to oblige in these activities, and that makes you X, Y, and Z. Like we are assume. Oh, this is perfect for where we're about to go because everyone knows
yeah.
what we're talking about. So with the law of assumption that we're going to be chatting about here real quick, like how I just take that is like we're assuming a role like in a movie, and that person has a said role with these distinctive qualities that we're all familiar about. And for that to be real, we have to believe that, like the viewer has to believe in that assumption, I guess. And so when we put ourselves in that belief mode, it will come true. And so this is where I'm going to have you segue into the law of assumption and provide, what it is, what it can do for us, how it's affected your life in a positive way. If any, like if you've caught yourself to be like, universe, show me that this is true. And like it's gone and like given you an experience that jolted you, like, God damn, I asked for this. Like I want to hear it all.
Yeah. No, yeah, let's dive into it. So the fundamental I guess principle of the law of assumption is that your true identity is unconditioned awareness, or consciousness, or some would even say God, that creative animating force that is like beyond all of our understanding, can't be symbolized. But we notice that, even though we're all so different, we all call ourselves the same thing when we speak about ourselves, and it's I am. And we all know, conditioning, that's a very hot term these days, right? So unconditioned awareness becomes something else by becoming conditioned, right? So the idea is that like you are unconditioned awareness playing the role, like conditioned as this character, like Isabel or Blair. And then you are living a movie essentially, or, your story as that character. And we have this, we do have like an awareness and a conception related to like programming and conditioning. And, we talk about like child inner child healing and like all this stuff and kind of like deconditioning and deprogramming. But what has really been revolutionary for me with this system is kind of the idea that like that stuff is accessible to you now and always has been, and like it doesn't have to be, again, this process of like digging and analysis, right? This very kind of like Virgo, maybe more like Scorpio, but just like the digging into something, like digging for like the skeleton in the closet, right? To like find the root cause. Like instead of doing that, you can merely shift your attention and like I said, earlier, that like part of the draw of going to the movies is being able to live through another person or like see through their eyes or like have a vicarious experience. The idea with this is that um, everything really is a story. And that's even like the first words in the Bible is, in the beginning there was the word, and the word was God. And I don't know how the rest of it goes offhand right now, but suffice to say that like everything we experience as humans, we experience as stories, like both for ourselves individually, for other people we see, relationships we have. It's a series of events, or like cause and effect and like consequences, right?
Mhm.
So why the law of assumption is so important, I think, is because it lets us operate from outside of the linear trappings of time
Mhm.
and the linear progression of these stories that we're in, so to speak. And it's almost a little bit like time travel. In fact, I would say it is time travel. um, so an assumption, right? Like let's define an assumption. An assumption is something that you believe without having evidence for it.
Mhm.
And other than the main principle being, like you are the creative power of the universe, right? Expressing as this individuated form with like certain preferences and desires and like a role to play in this movie. You also basically get to mix and match and choose any assumptions that you want to take on. And pretty much any statement that you could make is an assumption, because while it may be true for you, it could be untrue for someone else. And like any statement that you can say, it is true for someone somewhere. And if it is, that means it can be true for you too, and you can take it on. So it's a really interesting and kind of very trippy way of like kind of noticing that this everything we experience in our lives, it's happening within our awareness.
Mhm.
So even like the planets, right, which are like so far away from the planet, they're still within our awareness. Like it's still all happening within our uh I guess how this is like something I heard someone say once, describe what it looks like through the back of your head.
Ooh.
You can't, because it's nothingness. Like you don't know what nothingness is like, because you are awareness, and like what you shine awareness on, that's how you can know, right? So to sum it all up, the idea is, if you are the creative power of the universe,
Mhm.
drag essentially, or like playing this game, And if everything is an assumption, which it is, it actually kind of reminds me of a RuPaul quote. And RuPaul, he's got the whole like the drag show thing and the drag race. And he says, like, first you're born and everything else is drag. So like you're born naked, you're born, just you, and then you take on labels and characteristics and beliefs and choices, and you build this identity, which is your character, and then the story that you encounter in life is generated from the character you are, because as the character, as the protagonist, the story kind of does revolve around you, like, you get it from like a metaphysical, astrological, like you are the sun, the sun is the light of awareness. It's like the ever present, ever consistent, shining the spotlight of the story on the stage. So yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, so I'm going to let you maybe like ask if there's like something I should expand on, but it's a very cosmic and at the same time very like simple concept. And it's essentially that you have the freedom of choice in every single moment to add to your character, adjust, your character, transform your character, and in so doing, the story around you will change to reflect the changes that you're making.
Yes, you are doing a phenomenal job. So ramble on, like that good singer says, who I cannot quote at this time. But
Thank you.
oh my gosh, yes. Thank you for sharing the light on that, because as I'm standing here, I'm like, I'm going in deep and I'm coming back. I'm like, I'm going in deep, and it is that trippy sensation where you are extracting yourself. You're coming into this observant space that's above you, your bird's eye view, and you're looking down, you're like, huh, all right, what's my reality? And this is where I often, as a coach, as a teacher, find that my students and clients have hiccups, is when they get caught in the sensations of the body that do not understand how to work with this delusion, illusion, life, and declaring, this is my reality, declaring this is what I want, and knowing the path to the two, because they're very separate routes. We have the path of our reality, which is, I am Isabel. I am wearing this black tank top. I am a coach. I'm a teacher. I am talking to Blair. I am in an Airbnb. Like the very realistic specifics that are concrete. Like they are presently in action. You are that thing. But then you have that assumption. And it's that want, that desire of being able to create the reality that you wish to see as your future. And this is where I think people can get that hiccup is, all right, well, how can I possibly create this, get to that place if I feel anxious, if I feel overwhelmed, if I feel depressed, if I am so stuck in the reality? And this is where that imagination bit really needs to come to life, and our storyteller has to reawaken. So your story was, you are depressed, it was, you are anxious, it was those things. But to move forward, to have these assumptions, what are you willing to let go, to resolve, to heal in order to become that assumption? And so maybe you could share an example of what that could look like to bring some clarity to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that it works, like the reason why I compared it to time travel is that,
that was perfect.
oh yeah, thank you.
So fun.
Well, so, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of remote viewing,
Yeah.
right? It's like portrayed in the Netflix show Stranger Things. The character 11, she has the ability to essentially like go into her mind and project her consciousness into kind of like a 4D space and then see other spaces and places. And there's other movies about this, Men Who Stare at Goats, and there's, get dipping back into the conspiracy stuff a little bit, there's like government documents that have come out that show that they like, train people to do this, and it's a legit intelligence collecting method, and you can like tune in with your awareness and see and hear and collect intelligence using your mind, right? So the way I see this is that and this is really cool because like Terence McKenna, he was the mycologist and are you familiar with Terence McKenna? He pioneered a lot of the studies of mushrooms and consciousness and plant medicine and stuff like that. And he said that anything you could imagine was real, and that like the imagination was the sort of like library of existence. And I agree with that. And I would go another step further and I would say like anytime you bring something to your awareness, and if you are in, like, again, like going back to the movie theater analogy, right? Like you go in, the lights go down, you drop your awareness of your life outside the theater so that you can fully immerse yourself sensationally in the film and like let yourself be taken for a ride. And we do this like anytime you detach, right, like from the world of physical sensation. And a lot of us just do this in meditation, right? Like there's this whole movement about like detach, get still, like get in touch with your oneness and like your true essence. And like that's fabulous, it's wonderful, it's very, it's very peaceful. But there's like another step that you can take, and that's to reattach your awareness to another perspective instead of just coming back to where you just came from. Yeah. And the idea is to like utilize your physical senses in imagination so that you are experiencing physical sensations, which again, just like the governments, are like using this for intelligence and like data collection. What, you ask yourself, like, what is the reason why we have any certain beliefs about ourselves? It's because we have observed ourselves in situations and have collected data. And then that's our like programming and our story. And that's, we operate from that. If you can detach from your current position in space-time and essentially project your consciousness and like see through another version of yourself and make it more about the physical sensations and like the observations that you're making, and less about this like very emotional narrative of like transformation and needing to like heal and grow and like get to this place. Like if you can just go there and experience like the memory of that version of you, that's enough to move you in consciousness. And I actually used this for all the conspiracy stuff because it was getting to the point where I was well, first of all, just in my heart, I just wanted everyone to be okay. Like that's really just what I wanted. And I had to really ask myself, and I think this is such a helpful question that I think like everyone can take away from this. Anytime that you are feeling like, anytime you're noticing that you have a strong belief or a strong stance on something, I would invite you to ask yourself, why do I want this to be true? Like, what do I get out of this being true? And I had to like really ask myself that with the conspiracy theory stuff and kind of like some of the narratives I was considering. And I was like, why do I want this to be true? Because if I was getting really serious, I was like, you know what, this is like a horror movie. Like, why would I want to see the people I love and like the world, be told this like heartbreaking story that like I'm believing that I think is real? Why? Just so I can say I told you so? Just so I can have the validation of having been right? Yes. And I realized like I don't want that. Like I don't want that. I don't want to see people like lose their minds and have their hearts broken. Like, so I was like, I'm resolving this right now. I'm using my imagination. So I use the technique, and there are several techniques you can use. And I also just want to say like the techniques and the methods and all that are completely optional. Like the power of your awareness and you making an internal decision and like taking a stance, like that's enough to make a change, but like in this particular instance, this obviously was something that I was like very emotionally and mentally invested in, that had a lot of like, pardon me, pretty like serious consequences in my personal life, you know, with like people deciding to like leave friendships with me and stuff like that, which looking back I can totally see why. Like I was putting them in some pretty intense like survival mode, right? Like I was, like I said, it was being alarming. But so the way that I utilized this was I went into imagination, I like closed my eyes and I time traveled to a point in the future. I didn't know when, but in this scene, and it just came to me very intuitively. And this is another thing that you'll notice if you start practicing this, is like the burden is not on you to craft a scene or like do any of this stuff. Like it comes to your mind instantly, which I think, you know, backs up the idea that this is all already there and you're just kind of like moving into it or bringing it to your awareness. But so anyway, I imagined that it was some point in the future, like several years later, and I was with a friend, and I was saying to the friend, wow, like it's so amazing how everything came together and that like justice was served and that everything on the planet is like so good now. You know, it was just something like that. It was very simple. And then but it was funny too, because I like added another layer onto that, where, you know, how if you're in a movie, like a character can have a narration going as well. And so you'll see them like on the screen acting out, but then you hear them narrating, kind of like Ferris Bueller or something. So I like, even though I was projecting my consciousness into the future, like from where I was, I added on a level of narration where I was remembering that moment. Cool. So my thing that I imagined, it was basically like, I remember when I realized that all that stuff I was worried about took care of itself. And then after I thought that, I like was in the scene with my friend and I said, wow, like everything like happened so much better than I could have imagined. And that was it. And like Isabel, when I tell you, like the weight and the urgency and the obsession and all this shit that had like weighed on my heart and mind, literally gone, like smoke, like a candle blown out. Oh. And it was just gone. It was the baggage was gone.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like I felt the tingles of you bringing in that memory, that future moment, and then the layer of remembering that you had said that to a friend, and then the weightlessness that comes with, oh yeah, I'm so happy that it all worked itself out. Like I didn't have to control it. It happened. I played my part, you know, like how amazing is this? And then you just freedom. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And that's a powerful part of this technique. And it really, I feel like this is something that isn't talked about enough, is underrated, and could seriously shift the world. Why it's not in the conscious awareness more, I'm not going to try to solve that problem. But what we can do is just talk about it more, bring it into this place. And I love how you say, like, when you brought up the meditation bit, it is very much so getting into that meditative state. But what I think people resist about meditation is that, you know, sometimes there's the attachment of needing to look a certain way, having to feel a certain way, be a certain type of person, because we attach it to the idea of the yogian or of this Buddhist or of this holy person. And if we're not feeling like we're worthy of that or of that same worth, how can I even begin this practice? But it's really as simple as just sitting down, doing breath work, or like you said, using a tool intentionally, consciously, that could allow you to let go of this egoic persona feeling so that you can extract yourself and put yourself into that really beautiful vision. Like in my own experience, I talk about this almost the most out of many things that I reference, but when I was calling in my dream partner, like I was moving away from Colorado, I was on a cloud nine, it was a clean slate. I had just met with like our mutual friend Megan, and I was like, oh my God, life is beautiful. And I was in this whole new world where I had, and as for like an astrologer reference, we were in a heavy Piscean, I never say it right, Pisces
Piscean.
in kind of age.
Piscean, yeah.
Whatever it is. And I'm laughing because I should know. Oh well. Um, but I was in this like very heavy time of like, oh, nothing is real and everything is real at the same time. So let me make this happen by already confirming it because I know it's what I want in my heart. And what's going to stop me is any kind of fear, any kind of emotional attachment, which if we want to go deeper into like the chemistry of the body, when we believe a certain thing for so long, it gets remembered by the body. So the body doesn't have to do more work until your mind can be more free. And that's so scary because that's how powerful we are, but we don't realize it. And so we blame ourselves for having this, for not being able to change or take on a new persona in the first place. But really, your body has just done a really great job of doing its job and helping you out by remembering that. And it's like you said, being able to see through a version of you that isn't attached to that story and being able to go, all right, I am Isabel. I'm got no anemic problems. I got this going on. I'm going to make, like, I got this job or this profession. I can feel these emotions, whatever the case. But when I was calling in my partner, Danny, like, holy moly, I would wake up in the morning, boom, and I was thinking about it. I was living it. I was like, this is what is going to happen. This is the dream. And I would just sit there for 5 or 10 minutes. I would reference different quotes I had on my desk. I would scroll through some like photos or memories that would and heighten that feeling or sensation because I think we miss the sensation part in meditation. If you're not someone who practices or gets it or is interested in that, it's gonna be fucking boring, yo. And I'm gonna say that as a yoga and meditation teacher. Like you are not going to be impressed with a first sit down and all right, I'm sitting sick, I'm bored. And like, if you're not prepped for that, it's not going to work as well. So, adding in a fun aspect of the visualization is so key. And like, I think that's why people are so hunky dory about vision boards. Like, create what you want to see every day, and that's going to come to life because if we want to go into the Abraham Hicks area of the world, like your attention, your focus to that detail, to that specific feeling, the embodiment, that's going to make it come to life. And it's the repetition of the mind. And if we want to get meta on it, that is bringing the subatomic particles in from their different 3D, 4D locations, bringing it all together, and it's going to come to fruition. Needless to say, God, I love this. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom because this is profound.
Yeah. I'm so glad that like you're so into it too. And you know, it's something that I really truly believe that like we all know deep down. It's just like that. It's like what you said about the body, right? Like the body's job is to remember. And I kind of get the vibe that like, you know, when I did that, you know, and I went in and I gave my body a new story, it's like the body is the audience at the movies and your mind is like the writer of the story. And your body is just like reacting, right? Like and this, it can get so confusing with emotions in particular, because I know that there's obviously this like very present movement of like desire for embodiment. And I think like a lot of people are like wanting to come back to the body and like have like a conscious relationship with the body and like a conversation with it. And like something that I have noticed with this is like or at least what has been very freeing for me is that when the emotions of something like are like riling up, you know, and like the ocean is churning and I'm like lost in that kind of like sea of chaos of emotion, I can notice that the only reason why I'm like feeling those emotions is because I have given something a certain meaning, and then something has happened in like the plot line of my movie, right, that has like triggered those emotions. Because it's like, if you think about it, like if an audience goes into a movie and the movie starts, they're not just going to automatically start feeling, right? Like they have to learn about the characters, what matters to the characters, what's going on, what's wanting to happen. And then when the obstacles come and like stuff happens, that's when the emotions are triggered, because the audience knows that something means something. So it's not that you have to get lost in your emotions. It's literally like, don't shoot the messenger. Like, your emotions are there to tell you that like you have a certain plot line running, and your heartstrings are being tugged because that story is like coming up, and then you have the opportunity to decide, okay, like, is this the story that I want to be telling? Like, I had to ask myself, like, do I really just want to be the person who could say I told you so when like all the shit went down? Or is, like, who did I want to be and what story did I want to be in? And I heard this quote not long ago. It was so interesting, but it was basically, they were talking about the dynamics of story and like what it is that pulls an audience into a story and like makes them stick around basically and like give a shit. And it was the idea of like fretting, that there's like a problem to be solved or like a conflict to be resolved, and audiences love to fret. Like, that was the line.
Yeah.
And it's like the body loves to be like pulled into the drama, right? Or like the body loves sensation. That's why we love going to the movies, because it's a safe container for us to experience emotion and not have it have consequences in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, like, we can take that same agency and like use it in our own lives. And if you notice that there's emotions that you're like not enjoying, or if there's circumstances that you're not enjoying, essentially what you can do with your focus is like extract yourself from the conflict or like the plot line of this story where the fretting is taking place, where the tension is taking place, right? That like draws in the audience and like keeps you hooked on the drama, and like go to the end, like literally go to like the happy ending, or even like after the happy ending, like after the climax, to kind of like the resolution and the epilogue, where it's that like, still kind of like resting place, and like look back on what happened. And that's a very powerful, manifestation technique in terms of very concretely and tangibly addressing any sort of like inner conflict that's going on, and translating externally. So
That's righteous. Holy smoke. This is such a soulful conversation. I'm on cloud nine over here, guys. I can't. Ugh. I just want to sit in the beauty of the depth of this, because, oh my gosh, with so much chaos that happens in our reality, like what's going on currently in the world, I don't have a great enough, I want to say, awareness of that. I don't partake in the news so much. I know a little bit what's going on, like the bits and pieces. I know enough to sit in prayer and to dream up, assume the outcome of a peaceful resolution, of what I wish, of how I can make a difference and help, besides doing monetary or practical solutions to aid in those things. And gosh, I really think that if we could adopt these thought principles and apply them, we would see a greater practical physical solution in our lives. I just want to thank you so much for bringing this topic full circle for us. Do you have anything else that you want to share, experiences, like quick examples of like moments in your life that this has like come true for you, or anything like that?
absolutely. I think that in this case, having stories is so helpful because it makes it more tangible and less theoretical. And I love what you just said about, basically having another tool to work with, like other than the kind of more conventional, contribute to a cause and do all of that. And I did also just want to point out, I guess I would invite everyone to consider the concept that like action is actually not a cause. Action is an effect. Like, action happens when a change has happened in consciousness. and it's the change in consciousness which compels the action. And that's what like a flow state is like when we are in action that is flowing kind of like automatically from an ideal state that we want to be in, you know, and we're not trying to force an something to happen through, you know, just doing the same action over and over again. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, so I have a fun story. And one other thing I did want to say, like when you were talking about meditation, and you know, this whole idea of kind of like getting into the meditative state and all that, I think a lot of people maybe even just don't even know, but like we go into meditative states like so often throughout the day. Anytime your eyes glaze over, you're in a hypnotic trance state, which is what the meditative state is. And that's that same state that we like talk about, you know, childhood programming happening in, where our brain is very like open to suggestion. So you don't even necessarily have to, you know, like do the whole big deal and like, you know, shut your senses down and all that. But like, even if you're just like driving, washing the dishes, showering, doing anything that you have a lot of muscle memory, you can like go into that kind of like narrator mode and like just like tell yourself a story, or you could talk from a point at the future about something previously. So anyway, a fun story that is tangible. This is actually like one of my favorite stories, because this happened very, very soon after I had discovered the law of assumption. I was on my honeymoon with my husband. We were in New Zealand, and we had been enjoying some green treats, some like cannabis, and we had run out. And you know, we were like on, you know, on our own, like in, you know, traveling around the North Island, and you know, I wanted us to have more because it was fun. And you know, I thought to myself like, oh, like how would we get it? We don't know anyone, like blah blah blah. And I was like, no, like use your imagination, just go into imagination. So I closed my eyes. I imagined seeing my husband just like rolling a spliff.
Yeah.
And I imagined myself kind of just being like, yay, we got some, you know, and that was it. I just closed my eyes. I saw my husband like rolling it, which implied that we had gotten some. And the next day, it was New Year's Day, and we had done like a lot of traveling, and it was like the end of the day. And we wanted to eat dinner, and the only place that was open was like the sports bar or something, like 45 minutes away. And I will just say, I should mention that I had like previously lived in New Zealand like 5 years earlier. And you know, we had like I had reconnected with some friends while we were there, but at this point we were just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, like 3 hours away from where I had lived. So we get to this sports bar and sit down, and then like all of a sudden this like man pulls up a chair and is sitting like way too close to us. It's just like very sudden and weird, and I was like, who is this person? Like, why is this happening? And I like look at his face. It's one of my closest friends from when I lived in New Zealand previously, and he just happened to be in this random ass sports bar, like in this random ass town, like 4 hours away from where we had known each other and like hung out and stuff. And he said that, yeah, he had like saw my husband walked in and was like, I know him from Instagram. And so it was just this like amazing reunion with a friend who like I hadn't told I was coming. I like didn't know, you know, what he was doing. And then he, you know, was there partying with his friends on New Year's, and he was like, oh, you guys like want some bud to take with you? Like, so we got the free cannabis, got this like crazy reunion with like a really cool person in this really special way. And like the odd, you know, it's just like, what are the odds of that? And it came in like the perfect way. And all I did was just for a split second just like give myself visual and sensorial data implying that I had what I wanted, and the universe brought it to me in like the funnest way possible. Just so amazing. Yeah. So that was, yeah, it was incredible. And my husband was so hyped too. We were just like, wow, like what are the odds of that? Um
Yeah.
yeah, and there are many other stories, but I will just say, like, don't anytime you find yourself kind of like assuming that something is the way it is, or that like some, you know, it's like, oh, that's how it is, like, you know, and like I could have just as easily been like, oh, like, well, we're out, you know, like I guess we're out. The story is only over when you say it is. So if you find yourself drawing a conclusion about anything, even if it's something seemingly small or like kind of stupid, like I would invite you to experiment and kind of just like take, you know, a couple seconds, just like dip your toes into like seeing something in imagination that would imply that you have what you want, and let it go. And the less effort you put into it, typically the better.
Yes, I agree with that 1000%. And like add on to that bit, the whole when we obsess about the outcome, that's when we're interfering. We are interfering too much. And that's a beautiful note to go on, is like have fun with it, play with it. Why are you limiting yourself? Why are you accepting that reality? Why have you made that decision to be okay with that? And are you okay with that? Like you totally get a say in how it unravels, and you get to at least implement an awareness, a vision of that's what I want. And this would be ideal. And that would make me feel like a fucking queen right now. Let's just see what would happen. And it's okay, you know, to keep going on with your life and do what you need to do, continuing in that situation, but just to lighten up and have more fun. I think that's something we can get so deep and we can get so dragged down with it, and it is bringing the fun back. And I love that. Like this has been a conversation of a pretty deep topic, but reiterating it and conveying it with the sense of a storyline, a film, these really beautiful embodiment techniques that we can drop into anytime. Literally, the dishes, the laundry, taking the dog for a walk. There's so much time in your day to just 5 seconds. Okay, my attention is there. And then be on that buzz for a little bit. Just feel that out, allow it to keep living and continue on. Oh my gosh. Insightful, impactful, and productive is what this conversation is. Thank you so much, Blair. Oh, I would love for you to share anything you got going on, how people can reach out to you if they want to learn more about this, like anything you got going. We can also, you know, we'll have your information in the bio and all that jazz, but just to speak it out to the ethers here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You know, this has been something that I've been very, very passionate about. And I've been as you know, I've kind of been like treading the waters in terms of like offering any services, just because I wanted to like be in integrity and like really have a good understanding and feel that I was like applying it in a way where I could provide value. But I am open for coaching. I'm open for business. I'm starting with just, you know, DM coaching, whether that's like texting or voicemail, like whatever you prefer. And it's kind of very like fresh and unstructured, but I just like want to get my feet wet. I want to serve others, and like you said, like bring it back to play, because I truly believe that like that is why we're here. And I would say that, you know, it's just like going back to Leo and the concept of like the sun and entertainment and like the being the star, right? It's like it's for the fun of it, it's for the show, it's for the creativity, it's to be a kid and to like experience that magic of life every single day. And I think that what I have definitely learned and that I think I can really offer value in is not just kind of like helping people reframe and identify kind of, you know, that like that ending and how to like refocus there and make it like feel real in your body so that your body does integrate that data and like remember it and like make it part of your story. But also I think I'm really passionate about reframing manifesting away from problem solving, which is, you know, where I was coming from initially, right? With like my whole story about like saving the world and like addressing all this, and bringing it back to like, you are the reason for all of it. So like, what turns you on? What lights you up? Like, what is your heaven on earth? Because like, your only job is to experience that, and like you serve others by giving that to yourself. So I'm ready to help people turn up the juice on their life. And you can find me. My Instagram is the magic word. I think, like Isabel said, the text will be like in the bio. But please feel free to reach out. I would love to assist and help you, you know, edit your story, so to speak, or take back your authority. And yeah, just want to make this world a fun place for everyone, and starting with you.
Wow, there you have it, folks. One of a kind, genuine, beautiful, loving energy that you can dive into, immerse yourself with, embody, get into the ethers of this, not only for yourself, which is where you need to start. Please start for yourself, but for the betterment of our world, for others. And as the best, God, filmmaker right here, she brought us through the entire story. We started with the problems, we got into the nitty gritty. What are the techniques? This is what can happen, some experiences, and then heaven on earth. We have it all right here. Just listen to this 5 times, 10 times, reach out to Blair, implement this in your life, and gosh, just honored to have you in this space, to share your wisdom, to have you stepping into that light, that coaching opportunity. If anyone has any interest, please, 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 I can't recommend Blair enough. I was able to undergo her law of assumption course probably last year, and it was phenomenal. So since that day, like I was envisioning, all right, one day Blair's going to be on this podcast and we're going to talk about this. And at the right time and moment when I have what I need and she has what she needs, and we're in this very confident space, we'll meet. And boom, here it is. She was heavy on my mind. All it took was me to send out that voice message and the ethers came together. So we have it, the power in our hands. You can do anything. If I can do it, if Blair can do it, you can do it. I swear by that. We hear all these great people like Napoleon Hill and gosh, like Aubrey Marcus talking about these things. Like if it has been done, it can be done again. And in your own way, that is beautiful and igniting and an initiation to this heaven on earth that we talk about, that we are currently living in our own ways. And it just gets more refined each and every day. So, with this being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. It is a pleasure to share these incredible conversations with not only y'all, the audience, but with you, my nice special guest, Blair. And I'm just thankful to be here where we are in the now. So, everyone out there, you're exactly where you need to be. You're hearing this message exactly when you need to hear it. And it's up to you to decide how you want to assume this will play a part in your life. We will catch you next week on Incredible Conversations. Bye.